All right, so this is a really important video, but just before we start, I think we're currently at 37 members. We're just about to enter the month of March, so I want to see if we can get to 50 new members by the end of the month. All right, so I'm asking you guys to please pledge your support for this channel, for independent media, especially as a small channel, because there's basically no revenue from YouTube. I mean, not just because we're small, but on top of it, because we're talking about Syria, we're talking about progressive news. They cripple the reach of the channel and they also cripple it financially. So there's nothing coming from YouTube. It all depends on you guys. And I'm trying to be more bold like Jordan at Status Quo. So that's our goal for the end of next month, end of March. Hit 50 new members. You're not going to get any of these epic anti-imperialist rants anywhere else. You're only going to get that right here. So you can support the channel for as little as $2 a month or $5 a month, which is basically a cup of overpriced coffee at Starbucks. Just something little, man. That would be a great service to this channel and to this movement. So I'm counting on you guys. I know you can do it. I know you can. I believe in you guys. All right. All right. So links in the description. Let's get to the nitty gritty. So basically what's been happening now, people are claiming that Bernie Sanders is being unfair and hypocritical, quote unquote, because he's saying that the candidate with a plurality, as we saw in the New Hampshire debates, the candidate with the plurality should get the nomination, right? Now, the current rules say that superdelegates can only come in at the second ballot, okay? And Bernie Sanders had a hand in rewriting these rules after the whole fiasco of 2016 where Hillary Clinton cheated him out of the nomination, which is a scandal in itself. Even if she hadn't cheated him out of the nomination, the rules are still undemocratic. The whole notion of a superdelegate of delegates is undemocratic. So he had a hand in writing those rules, and they're saying, well, you wrote those rules, so you're a hypocrite. Yeah, it's not that simple. So first off, I want to show you a clip from MSNBC and pay attention to what this guy's saying. I mean, we're hitting new levels of 1984. Take a look.
More and more, and we'll probably have a better sense, obviously, Tuesday after the 1,300 delegates that are up for grabs there are spoken for. But this idea that perhaps Bernie Sanders is moving the goalposts a bit when it comes to delegates and what could go down at the convention in Milwaukee. What say you to that?
Well, I will say that Bernie is moving the goalposts. This is what people need to remember. The Democratic Party has a party. The party decides its nominee. The public doesn't really decide the nominee. The public gets to vote for President of the United States, but people who are active in the party, who participate in the party, they decide the nominee. Superdelegates are very influential in the party. Also, delegates are very influential. And just because you're a pledged delegate for Bernie Sanders or a pledged delegate for Joe Biden doesn't mean when you get to the convention floor that you'll stay a delegate for Biden or Sanders. That's a process. And so it is a process to pick the candidate who wants to be the standard bearer for the party to try to win in November. And so Bernie got to understand that process. And it's a real selective and detailed process. In 2008, the Obama campaign from the very beginning focused on the delegate process because we knew it all was going to come down to the delegates, who's committed to you, who wants to be on your team at the end, and do you really feel like they can be elected?
Did you hear what he said? He said the party decides the nominee. The public doesn't decide the nominee. Really? Then why do you have primaries at all? I mean, just get together on a yacht or something and just YouTube stream it. I don't know. What do you mean the public doesn't decide the nominee? He's saying the quiet part out loud. All right? You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. This guy was a former advisor to Barack Obama. He is a state official from South Carolina. He's part of the establishment. He's telling it to you, straight to your face. You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. The party decides the nominee. That's it. And this is basically the argument that the DNC used, the DNC's lawyers used in 2016 in court, because there was a lawsuit against them because of the rigging. And they basically said that since the DNC is a corporation, we're allowed to rig our own primaries. And you can't hold us accountable. We can do what we like. We're above the law. And of course, as you would expect, they got away with it. Nothing happened, no repercussions. So the DNC is a corporation and they can rig their own primaries and the voters have to shut up and just take it. That's what they're telling you. They don't care at this point, right? They're trying so bad to stop Bernie Sanders that they're telling you to your face, yo, whatever you do, we're still going to decide the nominee. Okay, so yeah, he might be winning, but it's up to us. So watch out. It's really disgusting. And I must say, as a Syrian, as a brown man, it's really hilarious that the United States calls other countries undemocratic and says that they are ruled by dictators, and goes into Latin America and overthrows democratically elected leaders and gets rid of people like Evo Morales and gets rid of Saddam Hussein. And they go all over the world trying to effectuate regime change and doing coups d'etats in the name of democracy. And then you look at their own politics and it's anything but democratic. This is hypocrisy of the highest order. Truly. American politics should have international monitors, okay? That's how rigged it is. That's how messed up it is. How are you going to tell third world countries, how are you going to tell developing countries that they're undemocratic when you yourself are not democratic? You have one of the most undemocratic election processes in the world. You have one of the most rigged systems in the world. Even the media is in on it. The entire political apparatus is bought and rigged from the ground up. It's built that way. The game is rigged. Now, even Elizabeth Warren had to chime in. She said something during her town hall because they were all giving town halls this week, and she got a question from a Bernie voter. Take a look at what she said.
Jason Pietramala, an account manager for a software company here in Charleston. He is currently supporting Senator Sanders. Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hey now, Senator Warren. Welcome to Charleston.
Thank you.
During the Nevada debate, you and every other candidate on the stage, except for Bernie, hello somebody, indicated that the candidate with the plurality of delegates should not necessarily be the nominee. This essentially means the will of the voters could be denied by the superdelegates and the DNC, which is basically undemocratic. And in my opinion, is a bunch of baba booey, to put it politely. Can you explain why the will of the voters should not matter if no candidate reaches a majority of delegates?
So you do know that was Bernie's position in 2016.
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah.
He won 22 states, so he went to the convention
that was
for his
Bernie's
voters.
position in 2016, that it should not go to the person who had a plurality.
Okay.
So, and remember, his last play was to superdelegates. So the way I see this is you write the rules before you know where everybody stands, and then you stick with those rules. So for me, Bernie had a big hand in writing these rules. I didn't write them, but Bernie did when they were putting together the 2016 platform for the Democratic Convention. Those are the rules that he wanted to write and others wanted to write. Everybody got in the race thinking that was the set of rules. I don't see how come you get to change it just because he now thinks there's an advantage to him for doing that.
So notice how she's like, well, you know, that was Bernie's position in 2016, and everyone starts clapping like mindlessly. No, it wasn't Bernie's position in 2016. That's a lie. I'll show you a video in a second from 2016 where Bernie says that's not his position. And another thing is that she says Bernie had a hand in writing the current rules of this election, right? Because they reformed them, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. They went and had this unity commission or whatever and rewrote new rules where the superdelegates don't have a say in the first round, but if it's a contested convention and it goes to a second ballot, then the superdelegates do have a say. Yeah, but that's because that's all he could get. That was the compromise. Bernie Sanders didn't want superdelegates at all. He tried to get rid of them completely. They wouldn't let him. So the best he could do was have superdelegates included at the second ballot. He didn't want them in the second ballot, you dingus. Okay? That's all he could get. That's all the DNC would give him. Because they want to maintain a rigged system. And that's probably why you have so many candidates staying in the race, because they know they have no shot at this point. I mean, it's obvious. Bernie Sanders is about to demolish Warren in her own state on Super Tuesday. He's polling at #1 in her own state. But do you think she's going to drop out? Of course not. She's going to stay in the race, and they're all going to stay in the race until the convention to make sure it's contested and Bernie Sanders doesn't get a majority. Then it goes to the second ballot, and there we go. Rigged system all over again. And what you're saying also that superdelegates were his play in 2016. What she's not telling you here is that Bernie Sanders tried to make sure that superdelegates who had voted for Hillary, even though he had won the state, tried to come over to him, because that's completely undemocratic. You had states where Bernie Sanders did a blowout. He just completely demolished Hillary, and yet the superdelegates were still going to her side and voting for her, which is completely undemocratic and ridiculous. And he also stayed in the race all the way to the end because Hillary was under FBI investigation. I mean, how's that going to look running against Trump? Can you imagine how much worse it would have been if Hillary Clinton had run against Donald Trump and she had been charged with a criminal offense by the FBI? I mean, she wasn't and still lost just because of the scandal, just because of the mention of the emails. Donald Trump clobbered her over the head, not to mention on other issues too, like trade and the Iraq war, et cetera, et cetera. So even without that, she's still lost. What do you think the DNC should have done at that point? What do you think would have been the logical conclusion? I mean, you couldn't run a candidate like that. I would hope that even the DNC could have seen that, and Bernie Sanders would have been the backup option, right? So that's why he didn't drop out. So that's the first thing, and also to make sure that all the delegates were counted properly. Plus, what difference would that have made anyway? I mean, she rigged the goddamn thing. We know that the Clinton campaign and the DNC were like this. It made no difference that Bernie Sanders stayed until the end. It was already rigged from the start. So that's ridiculous what she's saying. And also the logic that, oh, well, we had corrupt rules in 2016, so why can't we have them now? What? Why are you trying to gaslight people with that? We are in 2020, and last week in the New Hampshire debates, Bernie Sanders said the will of the people should be reflected. And he is the winner. It's not like he's being a sore loser or something. No, he's actually winning. He has a plurality. You're the one who doesn't. So just to further echo this point, here's a video from 2016 of Bernie Sanders telling you once again that superdelegates, if you're going to employ this undemocratic notion of superdelegates, they should go with whoever won the state. That's respecting the will of the voters, the will of the people in that state. Take a look.
And what if a superdelegate is thinking about going to you, but Hillary Clinton won their state? Presumably they should stick with Hillary Clinton.
Look, there's not a rigid rule, but I think, if you win, Hillary Clinton wins with 53% of the vote. She won Illinois by a point or two, sure. But when a candidate, whether it's Clinton or myself, she demolished us in Mississippi, I think the superdelegates should support her in Mississippi. But when in states like Colorado and in many other states, Utah, etc., we win the overwhelming majority of vote, I think those superdelegates should go with their state.
So there you go. It's very clear, man. Bernie Sanders is the only one in this race who actually cares about the majority, about the will of the people. He was treated completely unfairly last election. They rigged it against him. We have proof of this, undeniable, from WikiLeaks. There are some people who, like Jimmy Dore, for example, I've heard him talk about this since last time, while they were screwing over Bernie Sanders, who were calling for Bernie to create a third party, a progressive party, or run as an independent, right? And I think there are some people also saying, why not run in the Green Party? Or, basically saying that you can't win against a rigged establishment, and you can't run in a party that is so corrupted. And I mean, that they make a valid point, because the way things are right now, we know that they're trying their hardest to screw him. There's so many angles to this. They're doing it in the mainstream media. They're trying to do it with a contested convention. You have people staying or entering the race like Bloomberg just for the sake of screwing over Bernie Sanders in Milwaukee. I mean, we had the whole fiasco also in Iowa with this shadow app. It's a mess. And we know who they're trying to work against. So given the current circumstances, given the fact that they might screw over Bernie Sanders at the Democratic National Convention in summer, and let's say he really doesn't get the nomination and they hand it to someone else, even though he has a plurality, what is the solution at that point? I mean, I'm interested to hear from you guys. Tell me in the comments, like, what do you do at that point? How do you cope with a system like that is rigged, where even if you try to negotiate new rules, they still include superdelegates and they still make sure that they can screw you out of the nomination? What do you do at that point? That's an interesting question. Of course, I'm not surprised by Elizabeth Warren lying and, trying to twist the truth and skew reality to make it seem like, oh, you look, man, Bernie Sanders is the hypocrite. I'm just doing what Bernie said. No, no, you're in this race at this point to screw him over. That much is apparent. I mean, she has no path forward, realistically. It's just not happening. I don't know how much more obvious. Like, what is she waiting for? Is she waiting to get humiliated on Super Tuesday in her own state? Because that's coming, man. We're looking at the latest polls. She slipped by 17% in her own state. Oh, my God. Okay, so she slipped by 15 points, and she's now at 17%. There you go. So, still abominable. And Bernie Sanders is up by 12 points. So he overtook her in her own state. And this is a poll from 2 days ago, right? Sample size is 426 and margin of error is 5 points. Even if you take the margin of error into account, she is still down. And oh boy, I mean, that is not looking good for her. That's really bad. Normally, if you lose in your own state, you drop out. That's what Marco Rubio did in 2016. The next day, it was bye-bye. You can't really survive that politically. And I don't know how that's going to look for her Senate reelection, even though that's okay in 5 years. But still, that doesn't look good for you politically, okay? And it begs the question, why are you still in the race at that point? You know, it's not like it's just you and Bernie. There's 9 candidates, and you're just in it to spoil it. That much is apparent. So anyway, we'll see what happens tomorrow in South Carolina, and I'm really looking forward to Super Tuesday. That's for sure. Remember, you can sign up to support this show, patreon.com/papichuloman or paypal.me/papichuloman. Thank you so much for your support.